Pilchards and herring are the easiest bait to catch, not necessarily the easiest ones to store. The easiest bait to acquire and store, and usually the most readily available from all the locations, is big-eyed scad, which we all know as goggle eyes. Now the situation with them is that you have to have a wire bait cage or a great big rotocast planter that you've, and a waterfront house. But if you can get a wire bait cage, you can store goggle eyes for long periods of time if you can get to the wire cage on a regular basis. But goggle eyes are caught predominantly at night. At times, especially near the full moon, you'll find your goggle eyes on reef ledges as shallow as 15 to 35 feet, and sometimes, like in Lake Worth Inlet, sometimes they're all the way inside in the bay. They're frequently caught coming into Port Everglades at the end of the jetties at the crack of dawn. They're frequently caught at the anchor balls there southeast of Port Everglades. But the most consistently productive area for goggle eyes in large numbers is out beyond the reef. When you want to go searching for goggle eyes, the first place you want to go is your favorite daytime artificial reef in 120 to 250 feet of water. You go to those wrecks, you drop down a much larger sabiki rig. Everybody's go-to sabiki rig for the most part is another Hayabusa, and it's a D115E. It's much larger hooks, much larger sinker, generally speaking a much larger rod, but it's a very, very effective rig for catching goggle eyes. And when you go to your wreck, you hang a hydroglow in the water, and you start your drift upstream of the wreck, and you put a hydroglow in the water, and you drop your rig down almost to the bottom, if not to the bottom. But if you're marking fish at a shallower depth, then you would stop in the depth you're marking fish. You have a couple of guys fishing. The first guy hooks them, he starts to bring them up. The school comes up with him, and if you work them right with a couple of guys, you can work them up to where they're 30 to 60 feet below the boat, and you can do real good on the goggle eyes out in the deep water. Now, the important thing on goggle eyes is to remember that your worst enemy is the moon. If you want to catch goggle eyes to store for future use, the best time to fish is from 3 or 4 days after the full moon on through until the new moon. Because during that time period, you go out in the evening, you'll see no sign of the moon, and the goggle eyes will bite real good early in the evening, and then every night they'll keep biting later and later and later. So from 2 or 3 days after the full moon on is the best time to catch goggle eyes in the evening. If we're approaching the full moon, then you have to go for goggle eyes early in the morning, because as we approach the full moon, the moon is setting closer and closer to sunrise every night. So 5 days before the full moon, you can catch bait from about 1 o'clock in the morning on. 4 days before the full moon, it's 2 o'clock, and then 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and then you run out of dark period and you're in big trouble. The worst thing you can do is say there's a big tournament on Saturday, and it happens to be the day after the full moon, and plan on going and catching bait on Thursday night, because you're going to have a hard time catching bait. And if you do catch any bait then, it'll be right after sunset or right before sunrise, and it'll be in shallow water, because that's the only places that they seem to feed on the full moon. So it does make it much harder to catch them then. Now, if you can catch them, and when you catch them, it's very important that even if it's a two-man operation, that when you lift the rig in the boat, as soon as possible, you grab the sinker and hold the rig horizontal. If your goggle eyes are hanging this way and rubbing against your rig while you're unhooking them, they're going to die from loss of slime. If you hold your rig this way and you're holding them over the live well as you're unhooking them, and you want to hold them very close to the live well, by the way, so they don't fall on the deck. Just unhook them and drop them into your bait tank without touching them. Then they should hold up real well. But if you drop one on the deck and you're only catching bait for a week from now, pick it up off the deck and throw it back overboard. Don't even bother putting it in the cage, because it'll only crowd the bait that's going to survive. If you have to grab one to take the hook out of it and you're not going to fish that day, unhook him and throw him overboard, because he's not going to survive in storage. You can take a goggle eye and touch him with 2 or 3 fingers. Grab him like this and throw him into your live well. And then look at that goggle eye an hour later, and he'll be green with gray stripes. And in 24 hours, he'll be gray with raw flesh showing through the skin where he was touched. And then shortly thereafter, he'll be dead and very dead colored. But all it takes is touching him with your fingers or with a dry towel, or even scraping on the rig to take the slime off, and that bait's going to start to deteriorate. Now, getting back to our wire cage. If you have a waterfront home near an inlet, you got it made in the shade. If you're tied up at Miami Beach Marina, you got it made in the shade. But if you're not close to the ocean and you need bait for a tournament in a week or so, you can take a wire cage, put it on your boat, go out and catch your bait, come back in, pull up to a channel marker, which don't let anybody catch you, but pull up to a channel marker, or make a deal with a guy that does live on the water, or make a deal with the guy at the fuel dock and see if they've got slips at the marina, where you can tie your recovery line below the low tide mark. You never want to put the rope above the low tide mark, because other people will see it and go over and see what's going on. So you tie it down below the low tide mark, and you put your goggle eyes in this cage one at a time. When you're dipping them up, you dip up one goggle at a time and you put them into the cage so they don't rub against each other and take the slime off of one and leave it all on the other one. And then you just let it sink below the surface. For the first week, those goggle eyes in captivity won't feed. But for the first week to 10 days, if you don't feed them, they'll still be great to fish a tournament. Then after they've been in captivity for a week, if you're in a position where you can feed them, they will just get stronger and stronger and stronger. They become what we call hard bait, and you can store them forever. But then you have to feed them, basically you have to feed them every day to keep them happy. But they hold up real well. But you have to have a connection on the waterfront. I saw a hand way in the back. If at all possible, we feed them dolphin roe, because it's so high in nutrients. If you don't have dolphin roe and you really want to spoil them, then brine shrimp is the prime bait of choice. And then on the average budget, we feed them a mixture of mackerel-based cat food and chopped up squid. And you have to and once they're a week in a cage, they'll get to where they're absolutely ravenous. I mean, you open the lid of the cage and they start to attack you, so. I don't know how to turn this BlackBerry off, or I'd turn it off for you. Yes, sir?
What's your experience with pilchards and threadfin in a big cage? What, if anything, can you expect?
Not in a wire cage. In a wire cage, pilchards and threadfins have a hard time surviving for a long period of time. But if you get a big rotocast planter, we're talking about something 5 or 6 feet in diameter, and drill a bunch of holes in that, then they hold up quite well.
What's the reason the wire cage will not function as well as the rotocast?
Two problems with the wire cage. Number one is there's too much current running through it if you're in a place with current. And the fish also can see the predators that are trying to get to them, and the predators can see them, so they chase them around.